Well, welcome back into creation day 6, and this is a long one. I have to say again, I'm not attempting to be exhaustive in this, so bear that in mind, and if you've got any insights or questions, feel free to fire them at me in the comments. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, each according to its kind." And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. Also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the 6th day. So lots here, and I'm really only going to focus on a couple of things today. The first is whether God is plural. You'll notice in verse 26 it says, "Let us make man in our image." I think one of the best things you can do is go and search for a Jewish understanding of this scripture. Because whilst many Christian churches will look at a passage like that and they will say, there's proof that God is a trinity of 3 persons, the Jew says no such thing. So a couple of possible interpretations of this have been pointed out. The first is that often in language, the plural is used as a sign of respect. From my schoolboy knowledge of French, I can tell you that is certainly true for that language. And the same applies here for Hebrew. The other thing to mention as an example of that is the word Elohim. Elohim is the plural of the word El. El means God. Elohim means gods. But on many occasions through the text of the Old Testament, the word Elohim is simply translated as God. The second thing that's been suggested is that creation at this point is actually a cooperative venture between God and the earth. So in verses 11 and 12, and also in verses 24-25, it says, "Let the earth bring forth." So what this understanding is saying is that there is something of nature and there is something of spirit in mankind. And so at the point of death, we have that well-used phrase, dust to dust, but its corollary is spirit to spirit. What I find really interesting about that is that according to that understanding, at the point of death, there is a separation between the body, which dies and returns to the earth, and the spirit, which must return to spirit. This is a recognition that when we die, we continue our life in a spiritual world. And yet in many parts of Judaism and Christianity, there's a fundamental denial of that, such that many in the Christian church will say that when we die, we simply lie in the ground unconscious until we are raised in a physical body to live again. Anyway, let's hang on to the main point, which is that God is not plural, but there's a reason for the use of plural language here. If I look at Swedenborg's work, that plurality expresses the nature of God as both love and wisdom. And that's reflected in the creation of mankind as male and female, the union of whom represents the uniting of love and wisdom. The second thing that jumps out at me is the use of the word subdue and the word dominion. This occurs in verse 26 and verse 28. So those words in the Hebrew mean to subdue, to bring into bondage. And the second one means reign, to have dominion, to rule, to dominate. And I think taken literally, there's no way you can get around a very harsh interpretation of those words. You either have to dismiss them entirely or take them in a fundamentally different way. You have to look at them spiritually. Otherwise, the Bible justifies what we've done to our planet over the last several hundred years. Again, if we take the whole story as essentially a parable of our spiritual development, we have in these last 2 days different levels of consciousness. Day 5 was that intellectual understanding. It's a life focused on what we think. When we look at the animals created in that first part of day 6, it's a life focused on affection. And so there we have 2 sides of the mind, what I think and what I will, what I desire. And we can be driven by either of those things. But that's not what it is truly to be human. To be human is another level again. That is to be able to step back and consider what is true and what is good, and to be able to determine a course of action which is not bound. It is a state of free will. I can step back and I can look at a bigger picture and then determine what is the best course of action. The last thing I'll mention is that final section of the passage, which is all about food. I wonder what you think of it. See, one of the interesting things there is the prominence of the word seed. And if you look at the way Jesus uses seed so often in his parables, I think it'll give you a sense of what the intent is there. Because it is that seed that is given for our spiritual sustenance and growth. I wonder if you have any thoughts about what it is. As always, and as I've mentioned before, you're welcome to drop your questions and insights in the comments below, and I look forward to opportunity to have a chat.